Peace to the family. Today, I want to make a video about my opinion about the controversy at the 2025 Essence Festival, which is held in New Orleans, Louisiana, founded circa 1995. In my opinion, it has been the go-to girls club. You know, the sisters, they rock that. That's their thing. So I never have really been privy to it. So I just want to give my opinion about it. All right. But first I want to address two large elephants in the room concerning the Essence Festival. The first being that Target, based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, was one of the corporate sponsors. And we are currently in a protracted struggle against Target for their lackluster performance in honoring their word in terms of hiring qualified people of different persuasions, particularly what they call DEI, or what was known as affirmative action. Right? So Essence and Target, for me, would have been a no-go this year because of their affiliation with Target. When you boycott something, even entities on the outside of the principal group that you have a problem with become places that you target. You know, excuse the pun, but you drill down on those entities, partners, right? So Target, they deal with Target. Essence becomes a problem as well, okay? Even though it is black owned. And I also understand the nature of when you have contractual obligations, and some of those contracts with Essence were before the boycott that started maybe about 6 months ago, right? So I do understand contract law and how that how they were contractually obligated to have Target as a corporate funder. Okay, the second elephant in the room is the notion of how can I say it? The negative biases that are being portrayed between the African American community and the African diaspora community. All right. Both sides have valid perspectives. Yeah, for example, I've never been to a festival that I really liked unless it had African American people, African Caribbean people, and African people, because that's what we do. That's because we're independent entrepreneurs. A lot of times the vendors, the artists, the musicians, they come from the African American community. They come from the African Caribbean community. The vendors, the ones that are selling the artifacts, some of the foods are coming from Africa and the African Caribbean, as well as, you know, African Americans. Okay. So with that being said, right, Essence and the Essence Festival was something that was started to empower black excellence, as well as you know, the African American woman and the African woman and the African global woman, because we never were as divided as we seem to be divided nowadays, right? But before I get into this, I want to say, for the first time ever, with the notion of delineation and American descendants of slaves and foundational Black Americans and Pan-Africanists. I've never seen African people so divided, while your open enemy is going towards fascism and Nazism, right? So I'm going to take a stance that is fairly popular, but I generally don't take this stance. I never, ever in my life, until a few days ago, while watching a YouTube program, pretty large program, Radiohead Rich Black Magic 363, I never heard, well, I ain't gonna say never, but two African Caribbeans, they gave their genuine feelings about reparations. And for me, that's a kind of a tread lightly, take your shoes off type of demonstration, because I believe that Africans in the Caribbean, Africans in Central America, Africans in South America, all of them have claims to reparations coming from the colonial beast, coming from Portugal, coming from Spain, coming from the Vatican, coming from the Netherlands, coming from Italy, coming from the United Kingdom, and those financial institutions, as well as the Vatican, right? So I believe that though we may differ based on nationality, we all have a claim for reparations. So my concern of, I hope CARICOM works something out with getting reparations for people of the Caribbean, just as well as different groups that are working for reparations in the United States get reparations for descendants of African people who were enslaved in the United States, right? But what they do in CARICOM is not my business. If I can support them, yes, I can support them, but never in the respect of saying that they should not get reparations. And I heard two Caribbean persons saying it's like African American people, or I use the new nomenclature, ADOs or FBAs, are begging for something in terms of reparations. Reparations were given to, several groups, indigenous Americans included, but that reservation system was to the detriment of indigenous nations, first world nations of the United States, right? The Japanese Americans that were interned wrongfully during World War II, right, were given recompense to regards to the suffering of their people, right? And the big one that no one wants to talk about, in 1948, and through the Zionist movement, the State of Israel was formed, where European Jewry was given a homeland in Palestine. So the case for Africans throughout the diaspora is just as valid as any of those aforementioned groups of people. But back to the subject at hand, the Essence Festival. The Essence Festival, again, was founded about 1995. Like I said earlier, it generally was, New Orleans, Louisiana is where it was, where it's generally held during July 4th weekend, a weekend where people are off work, and they can travel to a beautiful city, a beautiful place, and enjoy each other's company. Generally women, but then, men would go with their ladies, and wherever the ladies are, the men gonna go, okay? But the facilities and the showcases and the workshops were a lot about women empowerment on a global scale, I would say. Not when you talk about the black woman, you're talking about black women all over the face of the globe, right? Because as women face difficulties that men don't necessarily face. So that's where women come together, especially African American women and women and their sistren from all over the planet. They come together and they empower themselves, which is a beautiful thing. No problem with it whatsoever. All right. But the Essence Festival 2025 has been accused of abandoning its core group, which would be said to be African American women. I would gather to say that I would say African American women along with their sistren from all over the planet Earth. You know what I'm saying? Especially those from the same stock as us, African women, African Caribbean women. All right. But because of the leadership, I think the sister, she's a Kenyan, Carolyn Wango, and a brother, Richelieu Dennis. The brother is Liberian. They've been accused by natural-born African Americans or FBAs, however you want to call yourself, as abandoning the cultural roots of the Essence Festival. I've heard Brother Richelieu, Brother Rich Dennis speak, and I've heard the sister speak as well. And I don't think that was their intention. Right? But I saw in a commentary, it says they were angry because they were having a jollof rice versus jambalaya cook-off. The term jollof versus jambalaya might not necessarily be appropriate, but it's marketing. It's marketing is what it is. All right. I like some jollof rice. You know, Senegal is the big dog in it with the cheb. But Ghana got some fire jollof rice as well, you know. And the Nigerians, they're not far behind, neither are the Ivorians. Try it. Try it with some fish. Try it with some lamb. Try it with some chicken. You know, it's something that, you know, it was really about the similarities in our food versus it being one is better than the other. But somehow it was taken as being a diss to African Americans. I don't see how. And if you think about it, a lot of the plates, a lot of the food that African Americans eat, they're not very, how can I say, you can't mass produce them in food trucks per se. You can to a certain degree, but when you're talking about a festival the size of Essence Festival, and I'm sure you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people over the course of that weekend, macaroni and cheese, some collard greens, and, you know, pinto beans, rice and peas, or whatever. Yes, but, you know, you got to be careful about that, you know, and you know how finicky we can be as people when it comes to, you know, our food or whatever. But yeah, you know, I'm sure that you have some caterers that specialize in Southern cuisine, right? Barbecue, so-called barbecue, right? Poulet braisé, you know, same type of African. It's very similar, right? Very similar. Wherever the world we are, the brothers from Niger, they hell on a grill, just like brothers from Texas. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't tell the difference, right? Maybe the sauce, but anyhow, I saw this one brother, and he was talking about, this is what he said. He said that when you meet Africans and Africans ask you, where are you from? that becomes something like a trigger. How did he say it? He responded that, he's from Arkansas. Some people say, I'm from Detroit, I'm from Atlanta, I'm from LA, or whatever. But he said that was something that he took as a anti-black mindset. Well, for me, I lived overseas, lived in the continent of Africa, traveled, Europe or whatever. And when black people see each other, African people see, that's one of the first questions that come out your mouth. Where you from? You know what I'm saying? You might say, I'm from the United States. And that African person, when they see you, you may resemble somebody in their village. So they say, man, where you really from? But for African Americans and African Caribbeans, because we definitively have no said birth record here in the United States, and we don't know a lot of times what our so-called tribal identity might be, that's a question that we really can't answer. Living on the African continent, I mean, brothers in West Africa, they would be like, oh, brother, you Jola, or you from Senegal, you from Guinea. What tribe are you from? What tribe? I said, man, I can't really tell you that. You know what I'm saying? I got some indigenous American blood in me. But I see similarities between the Mandi people, the Mandinka, Manjako people, and Jola people from Senegambia region. We're talking about Mali, right? My people that I knew, some of my students, they were like, you from Ghana, But that question is not a question as to dehumanize you. And I couldn't understand why the brother would see that as an anti-black mind state when somebody say, where are you from? No, man, where you really from? It's kind of like bringing you into the fold. That's like you see some African Americans that resemble Ethiopians. You'd be like, man, you swear this guy, he's Ethiopian, or this guy's Eritrean. And one of the brothers that was speaking was Professor Griff of Public Enemy notoriety. And I tell you, this guy, Marcus Samuelson, and Professor Griff, they really look alike, really, really Ethiopian. Marcus Samuelson is a Ethiopian American chef. And he and Griff look alike. But Griff asked the question, do Africans know about the contributions of African Americans in science and technology? And my answer was yes. The students that I taught in Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, they knew a lot about the contributions of blacks in everything from cosmetology to engineering. The girls, they would always tell me about Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit. It surprised me, but they knew about Strange Fruit. Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker, they knew Josephine Baker because of her work with the Resistance during World War II, right? And before the movie of the 688 came out, they knew about those ladies that were stationed in Birmingham, England, because that's where they were going to school. So yes, and with the advent of the internet, yes, it's very easy to know about one another, right? All right. So back to the Essence Festival and how the divisions of African and African diaspora people have been manipulated. It's sad. It's sad. At the last Essence Festival, there was over 40 performers, right? They had one African, which was Davido, who's a Nigerian brother. Big tunes for the last 10 years. But actually, Davido was born in Atlanta, Georgia. Right? He's a Grady baby. So Davido, he made it big on the music scene in London, England. Big star. So we can't trip on that, you know. And then there was Buju Banton, right? If Buju Banton gonna show up, I'm gonna show up too. I'm gonna tell you, walk like a champion, all of that. You know what I'm saying? Could you be loved? I want to be loved. All of those things. Big performers, big performers. But you know, I want to see my Frankie Beverly. I want to see my Jeffrey Osborne. I want to see all my African American soul singers, funk bands, and all of that. And I think that that's the beauty of being African people, that we can do that. We have every right to do that, is to explore one another's cultures and get down and boogie like that. You know what I'm saying? You can't, it would be ridiculous just to think that black music is limited just to the United States. That world, I don't want to live in that world. You know, I just don't want to live in that world. Right? So, what I want to say is, that my perceptions of the Essence Festival had been marred by what went on in 2023. When Megan Thee Stallion and I guess Janelle Monáe, all of them began to have a twerk contest on stage. You know, black women with their ass exposed. You know, even though I do know and understand that those dances are fertility dances, we might call it the Mapuka, and you might call it Mapuka in Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, Kutata in Mali, what do they call it, Chakacha in Tanzania. But women have this dance everywhere. Women have this dance everywhere. So it's no sweat to me. But there was public outcry from celebrities such as India Ari, right? And it being inappropriate for the room at that time, because you had elder sisters and you had the young girls in the room at the time. So, you know, there's a time and there's a place for everything. And I would say that I think that this is, you know, for the lack of a better term, it's a psyop to get us divided against each other, while, you know, white supremacy is reigning. And I think that it's a dangerous road that we're going down when we can't respect each other as human beings with collective identity and separate identities as well. So I hope that you think about some of the things that I say. Like, subscribe, you know, keep it respectful. You know, I'm not disrespecting nobody's culture, and I don't want nobody to disrespect my culture. And I think that's what the big problem is that sometimes people lack the spiritual maturity to be able to express themselves in a way, in a manner in which they get it off their chest, but without being offensive. All right? I don't think that I've been offensive to anybody in this video. So, you know, just keep it like that in the comments or whatever, you know what I'm saying? With that, I say peace. You haven't lived a day with learning. That was a day without living. That I say peace.